Good morning. Thank you all for coming to our session today. My name is Vari, and I am the Program Manager at Policy. Today, I'm joined by my esteemed panelists. Thank you all for honoring our invite. And I would like to thank our supporters and partners that are actually on this panel, IREX for co-organizing this panel with us, UNFPA for supporting Datafest overall. So without taking too much time, I would like our panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start from here going down, and then Judy is going to give us a brief introduction of the Transform program. So yeah, you're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shailene Momanyi, and I work for the Young Women's Leadership Institute, a feminist center for women and girls. And I'm really glad to be in this panel today.
Good morning. Good morning once again. Yeah, my name is Winfred Mutindi Wambua. I work with the National Gender and Equality Commission. I'm an assistant programs. I coordinate programs dealing with special interest groups where we have women, youth, children, persons with disabilities, minority and marginalized groups, other persons as the special interest groups. And I'm happy to be in this panel today. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Irene Wangoi. I work for UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, as the Communications and Advocacy Specialist. UNFPA is the UN Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights Agency. So we do work around ending preventable maternal deaths, ending the unmet need for family planning, and also supporting adolescents and youth. We also work on gender equality, but specifically on the area of ending gender-based violence and harmful practices like FGM and child marriage. That's kind of how you can differentiate our gender equality work from agencies like UN Women. And technology-facilitated gender-based violence is one of the key areas that we are focusing on, especially in our new country program for Kenya, which runs from 2022 to 2026. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wakene Njogu. I am a senior communications associate working with Development Gateway. Development Gateway is an international organization that builds data and digital tools for governments, for civil society organizations, for development partners and the like. And we also conduct research and offer digital advisory in the areas of health, agriculture, education, and the like. Happy to be here.
So good morning, all. My name is Njeri Ngaruya. I'm a lecturer at Strathmore University, but also I'm a lead consultant at Color. And when it comes to my interests, health bits for me, SDG 3 bits for me, definitely other SDGs work. And what I'm actually just looking at is also something I'm going to actually just talk about is how do we develop for ourselves, by ourselves, for ourselves. So that is the key thing for me. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Judy Karioko from IREX. IREX stands for International Research and Exchanges Board, but we love to go by IREX because it's easier and easy to articulate. So IREX is an international organization that's based in 120 countries, and we have various development programs and portfolio, including programs on information and media, community governance, and also strengthening youth development and leadership. Under this particular program called Transform, IREX is a lead partner implementing a USAID-funded Transform Digital Spaces program, which aims to redress technology-facilitated gender-based violence, with a particular focus on addressing violence impacting women in politics and public life across the spectrum, not just women in politics, but also women in public-facing roles, including activists, human rights defenders, journalists, and all women in their gender diversities. So just to give an overview, I would like to really thank Policy for partnering with us in this engagement, and it has been a very, very impactful 3 days. And we're hoping that the conversation we'll be having today will also not only spur action, but also ensure that we are also playing our part as civil society, as partners, as individuals, to be able to understand and see how we can utilize Afrocentric and gender data to address issues such as technology facilitated gender-based violence, and I'm sure we'll be able to unpack it as we proceed with the conversation. So this is an honor, and I really want to thank also our panelists for honoring the invitation to participate, and we look forward to fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To all our participants in the room, we are having a conversation today. That was the special request from all our esteemed panelists. Would like to hear from you so that it's very engaging. So today, excuse if I butcher the pronunciation, but Waki Abuse Tuna Report. So this means, from my understanding, the obligation to curb violence, online violence, is falling on the victim. Sawa? Okay. So we've noticed in our work and with the current state of online safety for women that the burden continues falling on the victims, on women. You're the one who has to report. You're the one who has to follow up. There are no redress mechanisms. And that is the exact reason why we are in this room today, to discuss what interventions mean for us as Africans and in an African way. I know that currently everyone is talking about technology-facilitated gender-based violence, but what does that mean in the African context? Because if we go to my village and I tell them technology facilitated, they won't understand. And because there's that disconnect, that is the reason why we're still in Africa, still struggling to reach the people in the community. That's why in this session, we want to discuss how do we center community in structuring redress mechanisms. So to start our conversation off, Shailene, could you walk us through some of the innovative solutions that Young Women Leadership Institute is piloting under the Transform program, and how has that contributed to the mitigation of technology-facilitated gender-based violence?
Thank you, Valerie. I mean, we shouldn't be silent about, online violence. And for us, coming into the Transform project, we're really excited to be able to now, amplify our voices on this that we've had for a very long time. However, working around gender-based violence offline and, the online space, because YWLI has been working on gender-based violence for, I think, 2 decades now. And for the past, I think, 3 years, we've started having conversations about what about the online violence? What about the toll that it really takes on us as, the victims, the activists, the backlash that we get? And this has really come out clearly, especially when organizing around anti-femicide marches, around gender-based violence. And this opportunity for us to be, part of Transform and to be able to amplify the voices of women in politics and those in public spaces who are always visible, because most of the time, for those that maybe do not really engage as much, may be affected indirectly because of what they see and experience in the online space, but there are those also that are really attacked because they are always in the public, they are the public space. For instance, the women political leaders and influencers and activists, because they are always pushing an agenda and challenging status quo. And when you raise your voice around that, then you're inviting a bit of either backlash. There are those people that will buy in. And so for YWLI, we will be working with human rights defenders, activists, to mobilize our forces to hold a campaign that is directly aimed at educating the public on, TFGBV and its impacts on the lives of women in politics. In as much as that we know that they're gonna, at times we see them saying we have to grow a thick skin, but believe me, they really take so much, and they're human, they internalize that, and it affects them. And we're seeing, a report I think I was reading on policy page and IREX, and I saw that there is, women actually self-censor themselves. They withdraw from the online space, yet we know that the online space is also contributes to our economy, right? It contributes to how we amplify or how we advocate utilizing the online spaces, especially when it comes to policy. That's the place where we are also connecting with policymakers that it's difficult for us to meet in meeting rooms like this, especially for those organizing at the grassroots level. So our work aims at having that campaign to address the existing gaps on people being aware on, the policies that are in place, but also having those voices influence the existing policies, are also looking at what are these gaps that really exist, to be able to, as a colleague said, be able to ensure that it works for us, African women, and it's made by African women and supported by African women. And one of the interesting, innovative things that we are really excited to is to pilot an AI tool that will automate the process of detecting the online violence, for instance, cyberbullying. And we will work closely with our colleagues from Nairobi and Koval that are developing a lexicon of, terms that send sentiments around TFGBV. So we will be able to train the tool. I think we'll do like an API that will be able to, automatically pull out those sentiments and be able to provide that data to inform advocacy at, to inform our advocacy through stakeholders meetings with, different institutions, including the Communications Authority of Kenya, policymakers, and to ensure that, there's justice, there's a bit of justice, around TFGBV, because I remember there is an influencer that was really attacked online in Kenya because they raised their voices on an abuser online. And the fact that we all have perspectives, people have perspectives of that, if you're posting your life online, then we need to subject you to brutal criticism, which is really not right. It's not fair. It's not a justification of me being abused because, I posted, I put my life online. And most influencers, that's how they're building, that's how they're building their careers through the online spaces. That's how they're earning, they're living. But now when we're having people, normalizing abuse and saying that, as long as you put your information online, we can subject you to abuse and all that, it's not really right. And also looking at the current context where Kenya is organizing and mobilizing, there's an organic movement from the young people around, asking for accountability and good governance in Kenya. But also we are keenly looking at the kind of abuse that is also directed to women in political, spaces, as well as that of those in public lives. I'll give an example where, there was the campaign around Occupy State House. And something that hit me was that people were saying we need to locate the president's daughter bedroom, right? Now amplifying the culture, the rape culture online as well. So everything that really happens in our daily lives is also a reflection. I mean, the violence that happens online is also a reflection, and a reflection of what we see in the online space. It reinforces and also perpetuates everything, utilizing the online space, because online space also gives you anonymity. People are using pseudo accounts, so they have more power to really drag you, along. And therefore, for us, we hope that utilizing this particular tool will be able to help us, get the data that we need, because we're looking at creating, safe environments.
Some minutes ago, and she was actually introducing me to something known as distributive. And one of the things actually just seeing around is that there's something known as RAG. So we're saying that as much as like now policy has maybe data, let me just use IREX has their data. Question is, how do you bring a model? So it's kind of like edge computing. How do you bring the model to your data without exposing your data to everyone else? So that actually works. So each and every time now you need to actually like have an upgrade of this particular data model, sorry. So the model is the one that is actually updated, so you download it and then just still bring it down. But when you actually do that, question is, are we working together? Are we going to be working with NGEC? Yeah, NGEC has a lot of data when it actually comes to maybe GBV. And what I usually say is that we need an ecosystem roundtable for us to just ensure that we are able to actually bring out the I'll say community needs, but this is national need, and so that you can actually now say, okay, we have this community, we have these particular needs, we have this particular data. So how do we go around when it comes to now the ownership of these systems? So as long as the servers are not ours, the data is not ours. Yeah. So that means when it comes to data sovereignty, we are not yet there. So how do we ensure that the compute bit, you can be able to actually have that particular discussion, that you can actually be able to now have servers that are actually ours. So just recently, the president was in the US, and there's something they're talking about, a 1 gig green servers that are going to be, it's going to come up in Naivasha. Naivasha is where we have the geothermal. So that makes sense, the geothermal. So now, but it's a PPP. So who is there? It's Microsoft. Is Microsoft Kenya? Yeah, so until we actually have these particular conversations of, is it our data? So what can we actually be able to do with our data? And how can we actually afford the compute time? So once you actually have those conversations of compute, we have the data, and how do we get this data from people? Like the issues that you're talking about, how do we now go to the grassroots? I think you're the one who actually talked about it. How do you go to the grassroots and let them know that, yes, you can be abused, not physically, but through a gadget? And this actually works. I remember the time that I was with Irene, and the moderator of the session was when we were actually having a discussion, and she's actually a woman in media, and she was actually telling me, Njeri, I was told to go on Twitter, and I'm like, how do I go back on Twitter after 8 years? Well, that is a space where I was literally brought down for like 7 days. And unfortunately, we are our own worst enemies as women. Because she was telling me 90% of the women who actually bashed her body, or 90% of the people who actually bashed her were actually women. Yeah, it could be pseudo accounts that's parodying as a woman. But the bit of question is, how do we ensure that we are speaking the same voice, but also we need to actually think about how do we own that particular data? Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I just want to pick up on your on what you've just said around data sovereignty, and also, you know, the case study that you've just given of a woman that was bashed by other women online. I think it's important for us to really see the value in investment in perpetrator data, because we can utilize that data to actually roll it out into education so that people actually know, because most people online don't know that they are perpetrators of that data. And then it now brings me to Winfred, because we are talking about data sovereignty and how it is important for us to own the data. So how can we build a robust evidence base using gender data?
Thank you so much. Such exciting discussions. Again, when you're talking about data, of course, data very critical in terms of informing interventions, and also policy very critical when it comes to also the interventions that we target, and also monitoring and also evaluation. So in terms of looking at the gender data, and I'll use the example of Kenya as a context. Of course, there are ethical issues when we come to matters of data. In Kenya, the custodian of data being the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that we know. Of course, there have been, there's the uptake now of community data by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. They have come up with protocols in terms of how they can be able to admit community data. And I know we are also talking about AI-generated data, which is also very critical, because as a country, we've been relying more or less of the national surveys for GBV, which has been sad most of the time, waiting for 5-year cycles for the KDHS data, and of which, if we go by the 2022 data, talks about the traditional or the offline GBV, if we may. And so TGBV was not mentioned when you look at that. And therefore, it is very important for us to have discussions. And one of the things is, I'll call for one, is the issue of collaboration, the initiatives that we are talking about, collaborating with key government agencies, also with KNBS. Right now, there's an agency within the Kenya Bureau of Statistics that is actually given the mandate of coming with gender data, or gender disaggregated data. They've been doing that. Most of the time, we have seen the gender data sheets that are issued, the county data sheet. That is as an initiative, of course, supported by our development partners, so that then we can have gender data. Albeit, again, the other challenge becomes even the uptake and the use of the data. That's been a big challenge in terms of it informing our policy and our programmatic intervention. Yes, sometimes the data is there, disaggregated, but again, there's no, we've not really pushed the demand and also the use of this data. So again, as we also talk about the data, there's also a need for us to really push for the uptake and the use of the data that is generated, so that it can also inform the legal and also policy frameworks that we have, the programmatic interventions. Because again, like when you talk about TGBV, for example, TFGBV, we'll look at the legal and policy frameworks in the country. And yes, of course, we have the Cyber Crime, the Act, we have the Data Protection Act, but again, and then we have this, the Sexual and Gender-Based Policies, the Sexual Offences Act. When you look at them, they are fragmented. They don't speak to each other in a way. There's the protection, but protection from what? And therefore, that's how, again, we find that GBV, there's a lot of focus on the offline GBV. Clear protocols and guidelines have been set in terms of what happens. But again, there are no protocols when it comes to the technology-facilitated gender-based violence. And then this means that we really need to actually advocate and raise awareness in terms of to the policymakers. And I'm talking about the key stakeholders in the justice system. We're talking about the police, we're talking about the DCI, the judiciary, and then even the health sector. In terms of TGBV and what happens if I'm a victim or a survivor of TGBV. That is a missing gap that really needs to be addressed. Training of the critical actors in terms of TGBV, and again, how to collect data. Something that has been missing over time is we have data that is, I say, in silos, so that judiciary have their own data, police have their own data, so data scattered all over. And therefore, having this data integrated. And one of the things is we can leverage on technology in terms of coming up with data that is integrated, and we can be able to use now that data to be able to inform our interventions and also the policies and the legal frameworks that we have. Because again, when we look at maybe the police, they may have different data from what the judiciary, or from the different, looking at the legal services. So having that integrated system where we can have a continuum from the different, the referral pathway, and that data is integrated, and we can be able to interrogate it. For example, if I'm a victim of abuse online, for example, and I go to report, then what happens? Looking at it in terms of the investigation, looking at the successful prosecution of it, and that can be able to tell us a story. Because right now, that is also missing, that we can have so many cases reported. Many times when you look at GBV, and even the traditional or offline GBV, is we are saying the number of reported cases as one of the indicators. But then we don't interrogate that data more to be able to tell us after reporting, then what happens? Is there justice? What are the pitfalls along the path? So I'm looking at data that is able to provide that continuum, and that is what is missing, and calling for collaboration. That is between the non-state actors, our development partners, and government working together, so that then we can come up with a system that is, of course, contextual, as you have said, looking at the African, looking at the Kenyan context, that is contextual one, to a system that speaks to us as Africans, as Kenyans, and also that is able to provide solutions to the challenge and to the problem of technologically facilitated gender-based violence. That is what I'll be looking at. It will also inform our legal and policy reforms in the country, so that also we don't talk about legal and policy reforms in the country, but that is not evidence-based. So we are looking at evidence-based policy and legal reforms in the country. Another challenge that I would say when you talk about data is, again, how data is presented. The policy or that is maybe responsible for coming up with the policies, we need to also ensure, as much as, yes, we have systems to detect and to report, presentation of the data in simplified form, so that for a policymaker at a cabinet level, that data makes sense to them. And based on that, then decisions are based, and also resourcing. One of the key challenges, again, from a government perspective, is the normal issues of resources. I know is like a glitch in the country. But again, data, lack of resourcing, and we are just having development partners coming in. Again, that advocacy so that we can also have government resourcing its own data sources. That will be critical. Because of time, thank you.
Thank you very much. I liked how you talked about creation of a data continuum and presenting data in a way that makes sense to our context, which then brings me to you, Irene. Context is crucial to understanding and preventing and having an effective response to 2FGBV globally. Now, I would like you to just tell us about what strategies have worked and how we can build, again, a robust evidence base, as well as why gender disaggregated data is essential for our understanding of TFGBV in our context. Thank you.
Right, okay, thank you. When it comes to context and how technology-facilitated gender-based violence presents itself globally, we don't see a lot of difference in terms of the prevalence. So for example, the Center for International Governance Innovation did a study in 2023 covering 18 countries, and Kenya was one of them, to check the prevalence. And 59.9% of women globally have experienced at least one form of online violence. And if you compare this data with the 2021, the Economist Intelligence Unit also did a survey on the prevalence. And back then, it was 38% of women who had personally experienced technology-facilitated gender-based violence. So you can see it's widespread and it's growing. It's growing really, really fast. And if you look at the numbers that were presented by the Economist, it showed that in the Arab states, nearly every woman has experienced some form of online violence, 98%. In Africa and Latin America, it's 9 in 10 women. In Asia Pacific, it was 8 in 10, and in North America and Europe, it was 7 in 10. So globally, we're all in the same boat, you know? And when you talk about gender disaggregated data, why it's important, because without it, you know, we can't really tell the extent of the problem, and we also can't really identify the disparities when it comes to who's most affected by tech-facilitated gender-based violence. And also, not only disaggregating it by gender, but also by age, you know. Are young women and girls being more affected than the older, for example, because they're more present online? By race and ethnicity, by disability, you know, how are young women with disabilities experiencing online violence? By migrant status, we have a big refugee community in our country. How does that impact? How is it showing up for them, online violence? And then also because technology has been used as a tool to enable other forms of offline violence, like intimate partner violence and sexual violence. You mentioned, you know, threats of rape on one of our prominent young women. So because technology is already a tool that's being used to perpetrate, for example, gender-based violence, which we are already, we're counting gender-based violence. It's something that we measure in our national surveys. The Kenya Demographic and Health Survey has indicators on gender-based violence. We need this gender disaggregated data on technology violence to also feed into our online surveys, yeah? So that we can look at it holistically and see get some evidence in terms of how is technology also helping to drive these other forms of online violence against women and girls. And then that also helps us to create, you know, better response and regulation frameworks for our country. Njeri mentioned something in terms of, you know, how do we also leverage tech and data? You know, for me, I would say to create like early warning systems, right? If we have this data and we have, I don't know what technology can help us to drill down into the data and even identify like attack indicators, you know? And also amplification. How is this violence amplified online? How does it spread, so that we can be able to detect it, we can be able to, prevent it, and we can be able to even more effectively respond to it. And then in terms of what has worked, it's really nothing new but collaboration. Collaboration is extremely effective between government, between tech companies, civil society, women's rights organizations in responding to the issue of online violence. We cannot villainize anyone if we really want to make progress. We can't say the government is not doing enough, we can't say the tech companies are not doing enough, but we need now to say, how can we work together to combat this, without villainizing any party. And it's been quite helpful in terms of when these different bodies have come together in other regions to build especially gender responsive tech products, and also creation of safe spaces online that's supported by all actors. And then also criminalization of online abuse, is very, very effective. We do have the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act in Kenya, but I think rarely is it used to bring to justice perpetrators of online violence. A lot of times online violence is seen as, a civil matter rather than a criminal matter, but it is actually, in some forms, it is, criminalized in Kenya. So we really, really need to equip our law enforcement officers with the right knowledge to help survivors of online violence to get justice. I can think of a story of one survivor who's very, very vocal with her experience. Her name is Quinta Wambulwa. In 2018, I don't know if any of you have heard of Quinta, her ex-boyfriend published nude images and videos of her onto a Facebook group. And it was their village Facebook group where her aunties, her uncles, her moms, her cousins, everybody was on there, people she went to school with. It was very, very traumatizing for her. She went into a deep depression. But even when she went to the police to try and get help, nobody knew how to deal even with the evidence, She says, oh, yeah, my boyfriend leaked my nudes, but how did he get your nudes? I sent him to him when we were in a loving relationship, but he did not have my consent, And the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act clearly says, non-consensual sharing of intimate images is wrong. But then the police were like, okay, first of all, why did you send those images, So she was even criminalized rather than receiving the kind of help that she needs. And she's never received justice up to this point. So really training our law enforcement officers and our judicial officers in terms of response, I think is a big thing. Yeah, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. I liked how you talked about collaboration and emphasizing on how we cannot villainize anyone if we're looking for solutions. Which brings me to you, Wakini, and focusing on a multi-stakeholder approach. Please tell us why it's important to streamline TFGBV data collection and why we should focus on a multi-stakeholder approach.
Thank you. So I think first it's important to establish what we mean by streamlining TFGBV data. A lot of data has been collected on TFGBV, which has been very useful in advocacy efforts. However, you still find that there are a bit of inconsistencies, especially when it comes to methodologies of data collection, when it comes to terminologies. And, especially when now you trickle down the research from a global level to regional and national and subnational levels, how someone in the US would define hate speech is very different from how a Kenyan would define hate speech. How a Ugandan would define defamation or again hate speech, it's very different from how we would do it because there are so many languages. And so there's a need to streamline how data is collected and making sure that if, say, I take data from UNFPA and data from policy on TFGPV, how do we make sure that all these data sets are talking to each other? You know, and the thing about inconsistencies in data is that they really affect policy and they hinder policy formulation and also creating targeted interventions for all of these victims. So why streamline data? One, to identify gaps in data collection. Take a case, take the example of Kenya. Kenya, for instance, Kenya at the moment has 3 sex markers. There's female, male, and intersex. You know, how is there data that is being collected to show, you know, the prevalence of TFGPV on intersex persons? You know, what are some of the emerging trends, and are we fully doing research on that? What are some of the old trends that perhaps we are no longer researching on, but also, you know, are very key? The other thing is resource allocation. There isn't a lot of money going around funding TFGPV work, you know, so how do we ensure that the money that is there is being used effectively? And I like that she talked about breaking silos. And I think that's where, you know, the need for multi-stakeholder engagement comes in. How do we make sure that we are not duplicating efforts? You know, these limited resources that we have, where else can we put them? Is it in media engagement, for instance, capacity building, judiciary, for instance? Is it in strategic litigation? You know, the other point that has been made is on evidence-based policy making. I think that's very necessary, and when you have data that's integrated, that's very comprehensive, it really helps in making quality policies. And also, I think even just from a monitoring and evaluation point of view, it also helps you track what progress is being made, you know, where things are slowing down, and also just, you know, how to push it forward. And I think the other thing that I would say about the importance of streamlining data collection is, like I've mentioned before, it's you're able to come up with really targeted interventions for the different groups. Time, I know. You know, if we are talking about women in politics, if we are talking about content creators, how do we use these data insights to make sure that we are giving very targeted interventions? Yes.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time. Do I have time to take a question? One question, okay. Does anyone have a question in the audience? Yes, please.
Thanks for the panel. I'll try to make this quick. I work with UNICEF Office of Global Research, and we work on a project called Disrupting Harm, together with Interpol, where we monitor young people's use of the internet between 12 and 17 years. And one of the things that we struggle, especially when we do research, in terms of recommending, especially for communication and advocacy or programming, is the area around self-generated sexual images. And it's very hard to reconcile between the right for anyone to be able to, you know, create private images, and probably there is a law which is around that, governing in most countries around non-consensual sharing of sexual images. But then now we are seeing on a lot of social media platforms where there is a lot of self-generated sexual images or videos from especially young people. It doesn't matter about the age, and it's self-generated, so it is not being shared in between private people or in private direct messages, but it's public. And then for me, the struggle we have is always how do we how do I, when I'm writing recommendations with this data about self-generated sexual images, how do I help and advise whoever is in communication, whoever is in advocacy, using the data that I have around sexual images without being controversial about the issue about rights, about being able to share, especially that there's been more implications about data that's available for what is being used either for taken advantage of in terms of even being used for AI, using for for images. So basically people are providing enough images and videos to feed the AIs to be able to be used to do all these things. So that's where I would want guidance. How do we inform communication, people in communication and programming around this area of education and awareness when it comes to self-generated sexual images and videos?
Okay, I can answer the very first one. When it comes to AI generation, as in like, we've actually seen a lot of people doing this. There is a case that, I can't remember which country, but they said, even if you generate this kind of content using AI, this particular person almost looks like someone. Yeah? So what they said is that for that, apparently that particular person was actually jailed. So we are actually in context where when using prompt engineering, we are giving the prompts to AI, ChatGPT and the likes, the BARD and all that. We are giving a prompt, and when you bring out this particular prompt, it's as real as a particular person. So we're seeing that this particular picture you actually brought out. Just recently, even you've seen it in advertisement, what they're actually doing nowadays, they're actually cutting down on cost and doing a lot of AI-generated work, yeah? One of our leading companies here in Kenya, literally, they actually went the AI way. So for this particular case, you're saying, this look like actual people. You can actually say, this looks like this particular person. So how do you say, no, I actually just generated this, and the motive, definitely. But now the policy is in place, like now for us guys, we have the Data Protection Act 2019, actually speaks to this, maybe not into the context of AI, but it's able to like show this is almost the same as this particular, as a representation of someone. I don't know if that makes, yeah. The second one, someone else?
Yeah. Maybe, thank you for your question. That's a really good question. And also just to add to what Njeri has said, I think it also boils down to why are the people actually posting self-generated images which may cause harm whether or not they are aware that it may cause harm. So I think it would be best to also have some sort of risk mitigation measures, or also communication around for the survivors or potential survivors to be aware of how and the kind of impact that it would have for them to share their own images. So having some sort of communication or context for especially young people who either may be posting as a result of peer pressure or also to trend and just to have more and more impressions on their platforms. I would think that having a survivor-centered approach where they're actually educated or informed about these are the types of risks that may come about if you post something online, and this is the impact that it may have not only on you or also those around you. So it's just having a survivor-centered and a risk mitigation strategy that will be able to inform the individuals before they choose to act or even amplify such kind of content.
Thank you. I would like to thank you all for joining us in this conversation. I think it's important for us to continue having conversations like this around how we can co-curate and co-create survivor-centered mechanisms and to redressing technology-facilitated gender-based violence. Thank you very much. We've learned about the biases that exist in the data sets that we are importing, which is why we need to invest in locally generated data. We've heard about collaboration and how important it is. We've heard about trainings, we've heard about education, we've heard about resourcing key stakeholders as well. And with that, I would like to thank you, all our participants, for coming in. If you could please help me in giving our beautiful panelists a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Please, the next sessions are there's one in this same room, and then there's one on the 4th floor. So please look at the agenda as well to see where the rooms are. And please remember that our closing session is at 12 in room 214. Thank you, everyone.
Check, 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 check. Check. 1, 2. Check. Check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. 1, 2. Check.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Mic test. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
what we've been seeing with the data economy in there is we are stripped of our agency, of our human dignity. So I would want to see a reassertion of that, a reassertion of our human dignity, a reassertion of our agency. I envision an AI and data future where we are the creators of the worlds, of those AI worlds in which we live, and so that means we create worlds that bring us liberation, that bring us emancipation, that bring us joy. That's what my Afro-Feminist AI and data future looks like to me.
Ok, bon, le futur des femmes en ce qui concerne l'intelligence artificielle. Bon, déjà, il existe un gap très, très, très significatif en ce qui concerne l'inclusion des femmes dans le monde du digital, dans l'intelligence artificielle. Et en Afrique, le gap, il est triade, notamment à cause des normes patriarcales, des coutumes, et puis on va dire des infrastructures qui ne sont pas toujours les bienvenues, enfin pas les bienvenues, qui ne sont pas un gap en investissement en infrastructure. Et bon, le fait que les femmes dans certaines sociétés ne sont pas encouragées, elles ne sont même pas autorisées à côtoyer le monde du numérique de très près. Bon, mais si tout ce que j'ai cité là, c'est-à-dire le gap dans les capacités, c'est-à-dire dans les aptitudes à manipuler, le gap dans dans la tradition, les coutumes, les structures patriarcales, si tout cela est corrigé, et puis sans oublier l'investissement, les dotations infrastructurelles en technologie, si tout cela est
knowledge or trying to teach communities, they can easily use AI to quickly do these tasks, which sometimes are very laborious.
The future for African women in AI is a future of empowerment. I think there's a lot of work that is already being done right now by advocates, by activists, by stakeholders. It's not enough, but we're working. And I think more women will be empowered through the use of AI to be able to achieve their dreams, do what they need to do, whilst also balancing whatever domestic areas of their life they desire to balance. So I see a future that is bright with possibilities and looking forward to it.
For the women out there, AI is a very interesting field to be in. And one of the things that we are looking at is being a STEM course. How do we ensure that we are part? So when they actually building those particular system, is a woman part of those?
mais
qui ne sont pas toujours les bienvenus. Ok, bon, le futur des femmes en ce qui concerne l'intelligence artificielle. Et déjà, le fait que les femmes dans certaines sociétés ne sont pas encouragées, elles ne sont même pas très significatives en ce qui concerne à côtoyer le monde des femmes dans
I'm back here.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we can hear you. You can hear me? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. How are we all feeling? Good? How was Datafest for the past 3 days? Amazing. Who's ready to go home? No one. I like that. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our closing event. You are in a space that has been created by all of us in one way or another. We are all children that are born from women. And historically, we have not been represented online in aeons. It's important for us to ensure that we utilize data and tech to retell our stories in Africa. What you're witnessing today is also speaking about what Afrofuturism looks like, the future of data and tech, what our role as women in AI is going to be like. I am honored to have had some amazing creatives contribute to this. I'm going to give you a brief history of how this happened, and I'm looking at Irene, because I literally was talking about this with Irene on a bench in Portugal, and we were so tired, we were hungry, we were waiting to go and eat. And then I was like, why don't we do this? And then she's like, well, Varimi, I don't understand this, but I think it'll work. And I went home, I thought about it, and I got to conceptualizing what it would be like. So, as you all have known, policy's work is about policy first, is a collection of technologists, of researchers, and creatives. What we're trying to do is actually contribute to the digital ecosystem in various ways. Imagine allowing or creating a space where someone comes, looks at art, gets to interpret data intake in their own words. So this is what brought this together. We want to actually start by taking our ideas around art and tech to the people. So as policy, we're going to build on this for our creative engagement, because we know that we're dealing with Gen Zs, we're dealing with so many people. So creative methodologies are the future. Creative methodologies are the ways that we need to use and utilize in the way that we all do our work, because we're all working with different communities. And we are establishing this because we know that you can also replicate, emulate in your own different contexts. So I would like to now acknowledge the most important people. First of all, I really would like to say thank you to policy and the policy team for supporting me. Irene, a round of applause to you. Nima in absentia. Nima and I we had so many sessions, and I would go and then she'd be like, right, this is too wild. And then I would go scrape back and start again. But a big thank you to the policy team and everyone that I came to talk to about every day. But most importantly today, I would like to acknowledge the people or the creatives. I think we've all gone to galleries and we've all gone to art centers and all. You know that the curator is not the owner of the work. They are the owners of the work. And I would like to acknowledge Tayu, the person behind this creation. I would also like to acknowledge in their absentia our beautiful creatives, Aida, Emma, Mitchell, Cynthia. For all of you that are going to be looking at this work, Cynthia just gave birth. One of the artists, she has a newborn. So it's really amazing. And I would like to thank all of you. I think I've been having conversations with some of you today, and I was telling you it's a secret. The secret is out because you've really contributed to what the ambience of this room is going to look like. You're going to hear yourselves. This installation is not one where we are playing music. We're hearing the community voices. And those community voices are the voices of each and every one of you, the people I've been able to talk to today. So thank you very much. A huge thank you to Creatives Garage as a team. You've been so supportive. Thank you very much. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to launch the Afro-Feminist Data Museum. Sorry, before you switch on the lights, I've forgotten. I would like to thank AKU. Yes, we almost did not launch this because we wanted to do it outside, but then with rain. Farhana, a big round of applause to Farhana. Anthony, Benson, they really pulled so many stops just for us to get this room. Thank you very much, I'm honored. So, round two. I present to you the Afro-Feminist Data Museum.
Where we are the creators of the worlds, of those AI worlds in which we live, and so that means we create worlds that bring us liberation, that bring us emancipation, that bring us joy. Yeah, that's what my Afro-Feminist AI and data future looks like to me.
Ok, bon, le futur des femmes en ce qui concerne l'intelligence artificielle. Bon, déjà, il existe un gap très 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 significatif en ce qui concerne l'inclusion des femmes dans le monde du digital, dans l'intelligence artificielle. Et en Afrique, le gap il est triade, notamment à cause des normes patriarcales, des coutumes, et puis on va dire des infrastructures qui ne sont pas toujours les bienvenues, enfin pas les bienvenues, qui ne sont pas un gap en investissement en infrastructure. Et bon, le fait que les femmes dans certaines sociétés ne sont pas encouragées, elles ne sont même pas autorisées à côtoyer le monde du numérique de très près. Bon, mais si tout ce que j'ai cité là, c'est-à-dire le gap dans les capacités, c'est-à-dire dans les aptitudes à manipuler, le gap dans la tradition, les coutumes, les structures patriarcales, si tout cela est corrigé, et puis sans oublier l'investissement, les dotations infrastructurelles en technologie, si tout cela est bien, les femmes auront de gros avantages parce que cela leur permettra de travailler depuis le domicile. Puis ce sont des femmes, ça pourrait être un moyen pour elles d'entrer de côté le monde professionnel depuis le confort de leur maison. Là, si elles s'adaptent à l'évolution technologique, parce qu'avec le télétravail, il y a plus d'avantages. Bon, pour ce qui concerne les...
Okay. Feel free to interact with the piece, but for now, I would like to invite my executive director for the closing remarks. If you'd like to know more once Irene is done giving closing remarks, to know more about the creative process behind the work, Tayu is in the room with us, and they will be able to tell you what the creative process was like. But after this, after Irene gives the remarks, feel free to interact, take pictures, post, hashtag DataFest24 and DataFest Africa 2024. Yes. So thank you. Over to you, Irene.
Habari ya leo. Bonjour. Upo wenyu? My colleagues, I've forgotten my Luganda. Gaba mzee Jericho. Shikamo. I can't believe that you're not answering the African greetings. In another world, our languages, African languages are widely spoken, are spoken by everyone in the world, isn't it? In another world, we're not saying konnichiwa, so easy. We are saying ohoro aku easily. In another world, we are saying, oh my God, how do you greet in Somali? I had practiced. But in front of you, you can see we've again brought out the heart of what policy does, the Afro-Feminist Data Futures Manifesto, and the artwork in front of you, just to sum up DataFest Africa 2024. It's about communities, and as the name says, it's about Africans. It's for Africans. It's by Africans. We are so used to everything, technologies, digital innovation being brought to us, isn't it? And you're quickly, let me sign up, let me log in, let me take up, let me take, as opposed to let me create. And I'm so honored because I spoke to an organization on the exhibition booth. I hope you all visited the exhibition booth during these days. It starts with a P. Power IT, because they believe it's African developers who will help us get out of some of the troubles we are in. It's centering Africans to do the work who will be able to solve some of the problems that we get into. So engage with them, and every other local, techie that please take advantage. You don't almost always have to quickly go and use an AI-powered tool. You don't have to, use tools that are from outside the continent. I believe talent, resources, solutions are within and readily available to us. Wakenya maandamano hoye. It's just to tell you, just from the peaceful protests that Kenyans have had the past 3-4 weeks, we've seen the locals using technologies to bring out information. We've seen all solutions coming from us. So to reiterate again, the Afro-Feminist Data Futures Manifesto speaks of a future which, one, will center Africans' lives, will center Africans' data, will center Africans' creativity. We'll be able to showcase to the world that you will not be able to move or advance without recognizing our talent, recognizing our strengths, and also taking advantage of us in terms of our resources, minerals, and so forth. In front of you, I think your curator, Vari, today, she's been speaking to us about this for over a year. I'll be honest, every time she spoke to me about it, I was like, cool story, Vari. I never in a million years thought it would end up into this, but I knew she wanted to show feature phones to remind us where we've come from. Can you see feature phones? The Mulika Muizis. I can see their batteries for, to remind us that it's a journey and that we are all part and parcel of it. It's not always something that has to come from one side of the world, Because of demand, that's why you have a smartphone, because you're able eventually to see that I need to advance myself, I need to advance knowledge in my household. Then you ensure that your household gets smarter. But Vari, let's congratulate her, let's clap for her. Hey, you had this mind, you went over, tried to explain to other people, we still said, wow, good job. And then eventually coming up and working with Creatives Garage, Thayu and team, want to thank you because they, unlike myself and some of us at Policy Team, Creatives Garage had a 30 minutes call and they got it. So you can see there's a role and place for everyone, and it's important that we honor that big or little thing. But much has been said. You've attended different events, you've attended different panels, you've attended some demo sessions. I'm so sorry, there are some slides that were not able to work during one of the demo sessions, but I'd love all of you to follow those communities, Braiding Nairobi, I forget the other names, Afri-Tales. Please go online and see what Africans are doing to bring solutions, to everyone. And it's not always about building the next app. It's also the everyday things that bring and strengthen communities. Just to, again, honor each and every one of you, those who have traveled 10 hours and beyond. Africa is the biggest continent, so moving country to country is not as easy as it seems, even if you're taking a plane. So our French guests sitting through English, heavily English-influenced conversations on data. I know it's not been easy, but we want to appreciate you. We know and we recognize your place in these conversations, and that's why I always ask my team, we cannot not have communities who speak other languages. So to also encourage you in your own organizations, if you're hosting Pan-African events, please always have an extra language in either an African language or, other languages spoken widely in the continent so that we can include other communities. But I want to take this minute to ask that we widen our arms wide, because I want each and every one of us to clap for ourselves for getting to this point. Thank you so much. I'm a stickler for time. I didn't want to take any much of your time. Is it 1 p.m. yet? How many minutes? 10. I'll speak the next 10 minutes. I'm joking. But to also recognize Aga Khan through the office of Farhana, the data office, and Anthony. Anthony, come. The way we've had our own sleepless nights, but it's been some 2 people on this other side, so it's not also been easy on them, but they've supported us to execute this. So please, another wonderful round of claps. And then there's something called the power of, is it restitution? We're going to see this, and you're going to see yourselves 10, 20 years to come. It's not because you did it. It's not because your memory has done it. It's some people standing in front of you. Our camera, our production team. Kate, policy, stand up. I know you're seated somewhere. Thank you. She's just tweeting, but just to say, archiving, putting memories is very, very important, because it will show there were people who are saying that they need to be recognized, of course, using data and so forth. So again, to thank each and every one of you, tweet away, post away. I've heard we might be selling some of these pieces, I think $1 million each. You know we are fundraising. So let's talk to us. We'll see how we can make arrangements. You're all rich people, hey. So thank you once again. You're welcome to co-host with us next year. Let's talk. We are open. If you have more brilliant, bigger, crazier ideas, guess what? The sky is not even the limit at this point. Thank you, and I officially open for 2025, not close. Open for 2025.
Thank you so much, Irene, for that wonderful close. I saw one of our creatives just walked in the room. Ida, please, can we clap hands for her? She's there. She's the person behind this piece by the corner here. And she's also one of our youngest contributors to this piece. So thank you very much. I think right now, if you'd like to interact with the art, feel free. If you'd like to ask questions, also tell us what you think. We really want to know your feedback on how we can make this bigger and better. But thank you very much. We'll continue just liaising and talking, networking, but yeah, thank you. And lunch, yes, so lunch is available now. From 1 p.m., yes. Thank you, everyone, and travel safe to those that are traveling, and thank you for supporting Datafest. We've got an evaluation form